The massive hall of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 3 artificial suns. 200 alien representatives sat in rising circles, their voices mixing into a low rumble as they discussed the latest proposal. At the center of attention stood Captain James Miller, the human representative, his gray uniform neat and his posture straight despite the mocking laughs echoing through the chamber. "You mean to tell us," boomed Council Leader Rex, his scaled skin reflecting blue light, "that humans take 3 full cycles to check a ship before launch, even after it has already been checked?" More laughter filled the hall. Miller kept his face calm, though his hands tightened behind his back. "Yes, sir. Triple checking is standard human procedure. We believe in being thorough." Thorough. A warrior from the fire plains of Drax stood up, his red armor clanking. "You mean cowardly. Our ships launch within moments of receiving orders. That is true bravery." Miller took a deep breath. He had expected this reaction. Humanity was the newest species to reach the stars, and their careful approach had become a joke among the older races. But 20 years of space exploration without a single major disaster proved humans were doing something right. "With all respect," Miller said, keeping his voice steady, "our methods have kept our people safe. We haven't lost a single ship to preventable accidents." "Because you barely leave your solar system," shouted another representative. "Your kind creeps through space like scared little creatures, while brave races claim new worlds." The council leader raised his hand for quiet. His 6 eyes focused on Miller. "Your species wants to join our military alliance. Yet you wear protective suits even in safe atmospheres. You build backup systems for your backup systems. You refuse to use teleporters because you fear them. How can such cautious beings help defend our galaxies?" Miller stepped forward. This was his chance to make them understand. "Our caution comes from understanding risks, sir. Humans plan for the worst while hoping for the best. Yes, we take longer to act, but we survive what others don't." He pressed a button on his tablet, and a hologram appeared above the council floor. It showed human ships, each with their multiple safety systems highlighted in different colors. Every human ship carries 3 different ways to do everything important. If our main engine fails, we have 2 backups. If life support goes down, we have 2 more systems ready. Some call this cowardly. We call it being prepared. The council leader leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Interesting. But tell me, Captain Miller, what happens when quick action is needed? When there's no time for your careful planning?" "Then we use our pre-prepared emergency protocols, sir, because we've already thought about what could go wrong and know exactly what to do." More laughter, but softer this time. Some representatives were actually listening. "We may be slow by your standards," Miller continued, "but we're thorough. In 20 years of spaceflight, Earth has never lost a ship to technical failure, never lost a crew to a preventable accident. And we've mapped more dangerous areas of space than any other new species, precisely because we go in prepared." The council leader stood, towering over the human captain. "Your industrial capacity is impressive, Captain. Your species builds strong ships, even if you use them carefully. The council will vote now on your membership." Miller waited as the representatives cast their votes. The minutes stretched out like hours. Finally, the council leader spoke again. "By a narrow margin, humanity is accepted into the alliance. But," he added with what might have been a smile, "you will serve in support roles. Leave the brave fighting to species better suited for it." "Thank you, sir," Miller replied, bowing slightly. "We will serve well in whatever role we're given." As he walked out of the chamber, Miller could still hear some representatives laughing about the cowardly humans. But he didn't mind. Humanity had learned its careful ways through thousands of years of hard lessons. Better to be called a coward than to be called dead. Little did the council know that their mockery of human caution would soon turn to desperate gratitude. The darkness at the edge of the galaxy was stirring, and survival would require more than just bravery. 3 months after humanity joined the Galactic Alliance, The first warning signs appeared. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of his support ship, the Defender, staring at the strange readings on his screen. The numbers made no sense. Gravity waves that shouldn't exist. Energy patterns that broke known laws of physics. "Send another probe," Miller ordered. His crew worked quietly, following their triple-check procedures. Some alien visitors on the bridge shifted impatiently. "Why waste time with more probes?" asked Commander Grix of the warrior race Drax, his red armor gleaming under the bridge lights. "My battle fleet stands ready. We should attack now." Miller pointed to the screen. "With respect, Commander, we don't know what we're dealing with. Look at these readings. They're unlike anything in our database." "Bah! This is why humans are support crews." Grix walked to the communication panel. "My scouts will show you how real warriors explore." Before Miller could protest, 3 Drax scout ships jumped into the mysterious sector. The human crew watched their signals on the long-range scanners. "Sir," called out Tom from the sensor station, "those ships aren't following any safety protocols. They're running with minimal shields, no backup systems online." Miller grabbed the communication controls. "Drax scouts, this is Captain Miller. Please activate your defensive systems. These readings suggest." The first scout ship vanished from their screens. Then the second. Then the third. Complete silence fell on the bridge. Even Commander Grix stood speechless. "Play back the sensor logs," Miller ordered. "Full analysis. Tom, check every frequency. Lisa, run the gravity wave patterns through our database again." "This is why we're losing time to your human caution," Grix shouted, slamming his fist on a nearby console. "We should send in the battle fleet now. Avenge our scouts." Miller stood firm. "Commander, something out there just destroyed 3 ships without leaving a trace. We need to understand what we're facing." The human crew worked methodically, checking and rechecking data. After 20 minutes, Lisa called out from her station. "Captain, the gravity patterns, they're not random. They're being generated by something big." Miller studied the new analysis. His face grew serious. "Look at these energy signatures. Whatever's out there, it's not natural. And it's spreading." More ships arrived in the sector, warrior races responding to Grix's call. The Drax battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace, along with ships from 3 other aggressive species. Their commanders appeared on the communication screens, all talking at once about revenge and glory. "Wait," Miller tried to warn them. "We're detecting a pattern in the anomalies. Give us time to analyze." But the warrior ships were already moving forward, weapons charged. Their commanders ignored the human captain's calls for caution. Miller watched in growing horror as the massive fleet approached the mysterious sector. "All human ships, full defensive positions," he ordered. "Backup systems online. Maintain safe distance and record everything." "Sir," Tom's voice shook slightly. "The energy readings just spiked. Something's happening." The space in front of the warrior fleet seemed to twist. A massive shape emerged, crystalline, geometric, beautiful, and terrifying. It dwarfed the largest battleships. "By the stars," someone whispered. The crystal entity pulsed once. Gravity waves rippled out like a shockwave. The proud warrior fleet, with all its weapons and bravery, never stood a chance. Ships crumpled like paper, crushed by impossible gravitational forces. The few that tried to flee were caught in invisible webs of warped spacetime. Only the human support ships, hanging back at a safe distance with their multiple shield systems and backup power cores, survived to witness the massacre. "Send all data to Earth Command and the Council," Miller ordered, his voice steady despite the destruction they'd just witnessed. "And get me everything we have on crystalline life forms. We need to understand what we're dealing with." As the human ships carefully retreated, maintaining their defensive formation, the crystal entity turned slowly in space. More shapes were emerging behind it. The careful humans had just become the front line in a war nobody was prepared for. and their cowardly habits of gathering data and maintaining safety protocols might be the only thing standing between civilization and extinction. The emergency council meeting was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other as the recording of the crystal entity's attack played again on the main screen. Captain Miller stood quietly, watching the massive ships crumple under impossible gravity waves. 300 ships lost, roared Commander Grix, his red armor now scratched and dented from his narrow escape. The greatest fleet ever assembled, destroyed in minutes. The council leader's 6 eyes looked tired, and only the human support ships survived. Captain Miller, explain how. Miller stepped forward, activating his tablet's display. Our standard safety protocols saved us. Triple-layered shields, backup power cores, and most importantly, our distance from the threat. You mean you're cowardly hanging back, sneered another warrior commander. No, Miller replied firmly. I mean our tactical positioning. Because we stayed back, we gathered vital data about the enemy. He enlarged the sensor readings on the display. The crystal beings generate gravity waves in a specific pattern. Look here. The display showed detailed analysis of the attack. The human crew had recorded everything. Their multiple sensor systems capturing data that would have been lost if they'd been closer to the battle. Their gravity weapons have a limited range, Miller explained. And more importantly, they follow mathematical patterns we might be able to predict. A new alarm blared through the council chamber. The main screen switched to a live feed. More crystal ships had appeared, this time near major trading routes. Enough talk. Commander Grix drew his ceremonial sword. All warrior fleets, attack. We will show these crystal monsters true bravery. Wait, Miller called out, but it was too late. The remaining warrior ships were already jumping to fight. He turned to the council leader. Sir, request permission to implement the human defense plan. What plan? You've had mere hours since the first attack. Miller nodded. Hours we spent analyzing data instead of rushing to revenge. We have a theory about the crystal ship's weakness, but we need time to test it. More battle feeds appeared on the screen. The warrior fleets engaged the crystal ships, their most powerful weapons barely scratching the geometric surfaces. The crystal entities pulsed with light, and gravity waves twisted space itself. Mighty battleships were crushed like empty cans, their brave crews never even getting close enough to land a meaningful hit. Look at their attack pattern. Miller pointed to his display. The gravity waves pulse at specific frequencies. If we can generate a counter-frequency. Another alarm screamed. 3 more crystal ships had appeared near populated worlds. The council chamber erupted in panic. All human ships, Miller spoke into his communicator, maintain safe distance. Record everything. Focus on scanning frequencies during attacks, and keep your backup systems hot. We might only get one chance at this. The human ships moved with careful precision. While the warrior fleets charged in and died bravely, human crews stayed at the edge of battle, their sensors recording every detail. Their triple-checked systems and backup power cores kept them running even when the gravity waves interfered with standard equipment. Sir, Miller's sensor officer reported through the chamber speakers, we're detecting harmonic patterns in the gravity waves. They're almost like music. Miller studied the new data, cross-reference with known frequencies. Look for resonance patterns. The warrior ships continued their futile attacks. Hundreds more died as the crystal fleet advanced. But the human ships danced at the edges of battle, gathering data, testing theories, staying just far enough away to survive. Captain Miller, the council leader's voice cut through the chaos. Your cautious approach has kept your ships alive. But we're losing this war. We need action. Miller looked up from his data. Sir, with respect, we are acting. Every scan, every piece of data brings us closer to understanding these beings. And understanding them is the key to beating them. As if to emphasize his point, another warrior fleet died on the main screen, their brave charge ending in twisted metal and spreading debris. "The warrior fleets are nearly gone," the council leader said heavily. "Soon, only your human ships will stand between these crystal monsters and our worlds." Miller nodded grimly. "Then it's good we've been gathering data instead of dying bravely, because I think we found something. A pattern in their attack frequencies that might just be their weakness." The crystal ships advanced through space, unstoppable and alien. But for the first time since the war began, there was a glimmer of hope. The cowardly humans, with their endless preparations and careful observations, might have found a way to fight back. In the dimly lit laboratory of the human support ship Defender, Dr. Bill Thomas adjusted his equipment for the 100th time. Captain Miller watched as the scientist carefully set up another test, his movements slow and precise. "You're sure about this?" Miller asked, looking at the small crystal fragment floating in the test chamber. It had taken 3 days of careful operation to recover even this tiny piece from a destroyed crystal ship. "As sure as triple checking can make me, Captain." Bill smiled slightly. The fragment glowed softly, suspended in the containment field. "Watch this." He pressed a button, and a specific sound frequency filled the chamber. The crystal fragment vibrated. Again, but different this time, Bill said, adjusting the controls. He played another frequency. The crystal stopped vibrating. The third frequency made it vibrate so hard it almost broke the containment field. "Like a wine glass," Miller muttered, understanding dawning on his face. "They're vulnerable to specific sounds." "Not just sounds, Captain. Frequencies. Everything has a natural frequency, even giant crystal ships." The ship's intercom crackled. "Captain, to the bridge." More crystal ships detected. Miller and Bill rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed 5 crystal ships approaching a populated system. The few remaining warrior ships were gathering for another attack. "Send our findings to the council," Miller ordered. "We need to stop another suicide charge." But it was too late. On the screen, the warrior fleet jumped into battle. Their commanders ignored the incoming human transmission, too focused on revenge. The crystal ships pulsed with their deadly gravity waves. "Record everything," Miller ordered his crew. "Every frequency, every wave pattern." Bill worked at a science station, comparing the new data with his tests. "Captain, look. The gravity waves. They're using the same frequencies we found in the lab, just much stronger." The warrior fleet died bravely but uselessly, their ships crushed by invisible forces. The crystal ships continued their advance, unstoppable and alien. "Get me the council," Miller said. The main screen switched to the council chamber, where panic was spreading. "More ships lost," Commander Grix shouted. "We must gather every remaining fleet for one final attack." "No," Miller cut in. "Council leader, we found something." "Dr. Thomas, show them." Bill transmitted the lab data. The crystal beings use specific frequencies to control gravity, but those same frequencies might be their weakness, like an opera singer shattering a glass. "More human theories," Grix sneered. "While you play in your labs, our worlds burn." The council leader raised his hand for silence. "Explain further, Dr. Thomas." "If we can generate the right counter frequencies," Bill said, "we might be able to disrupt their control over gravity. Maybe even turn their own weapons against them. But we need time to develop the right equipment." "Time?" Another warrior commander laughed. "The crystal ships approach our core worlds. We must attack now." Miller stepped forward. "Sir, rushing in has cost us thousands of ships and lives. Give us 2 days to test our theory. Let us try something different than just charging in to die." The council chamber erupted in argument. Warriors demanded immediate action. Others, seeing the logic in the human approach, called for patience. One day, the council leader finally declared, "You have 1 day, Captain Miller. After that, we launch our final attack, with or without your frequency weapons." Back in the lab, Bill worked furiously, testing frequencies while Miller coordinated with other human ships. They had scattered teams of scientists working on the problem, sharing data, checking and rechecking results. It's not just about finding the right frequency, Bill explained as he worked. We need to generate it strongly enough to affect their huge ships, and we need to survive their attacks long enough to use it. Miller nodded. So we need bigger speakers and better shields. Get me a list of everything you need. We'll strip every human ship down to build this weapon if we have to. As they worked, the crystal ships continued their advance. But for the first time, they weren't facing warriors rushing to die gloriously. They were facing humans, cautious, methodical, and now armed with understanding. The race against time had begun. One day to build a weapon, or watch civilization fall to the crystal tide. 20 hours remained until the Council's deadline. The human fleet had gathered in deep space, far from the crystal ship's advance. Every vessel was undergoing rapid modifications. The Defender had become a makeshift command center, its cargo bays transformed into workshops. Captain Miller walked through the organized chaos, watching his crews stripped equipment from support ships to build the frequency weapons. Dr. Bill Thomas followed, checking each installation personally. Triple-check everything, Miller reminded the crews. We only get one shot at this. Still being careful, human. Commander Grix appeared, his red armor reflecting the sparks from nearby welding. Even now, you waste time with checks and tests. Miller gestured to the massive speakers being installed on a ship's hull. Would you fire a broken weapon, Commander, or pilot a damaged ship? I would fight with my bare hands if needed. And you would die, Bill said quietly, not looking up from his readings. Just like the brave fleets that charged in without understanding what they faced. A young engineer ran up to them. Captain, the first weapon is ready for testing. They hurried to the test chamber. A larger crystal fragment, recovered at great risk from a battlefield, floated in the containment field. The new frequency weapon, smaller than the ones being mounted on ships, pointed at it. Beginning test, Bill announced. Everyone behind the safety shields. The weapon powered up. A high-pitched whine filled the air. The crystal fragment vibrated slightly. More power, Bill ordered. Carefully. The whine grew louder. The crystal shook harder. A little more. The crystal fragment shattered explosively. Even behind the shields, everyone flinched. It works, Miller said, grinning. How many ships can we equip in? He checked the time. 19 hours. 15 ships, Bill replied. Maybe 18 if we strip everything non-essential. But Captain, we need to test the range, the power requirements, the shield modifications. Do it. Test everything. Triple-check every system. Miller turned to his communication officer. Get me the Council. The Council chamber appeared on the main screen. The leader looked even more tired than before. The crystal ships have taken 3 more systems, he announced. Our remaining warriors gather for the final battle. What progress, Captain Miller? Miller transmitted the test results. The weapons work, sir. We need a few more hours to... Hours? A warrior commander interrupted. The enemy advances now. We attack at dawn. You'll die at dawn, Bill snapped, surprising everyone with his forceful tone. But if you wait just a few more hours, you might actually survive this battle. The Council chamber went quiet. The Council leader studied the test data carefully. You have until dawn to complete your preparations, he finally said. No longer. The warrior fleets will hold their attack until then. The screen went dark. Miller turned to his crews. You heard him. Every minute counts, but every check matters. Do it fast. Do it right. The hours blurred together. Crews worked in shifts, installing weapons, modifying shields, testing systems. The human fleet shrank as more ships were stripped for parts, but those that remained grew stronger. Bill supervised every weapon installation personally, checking frequencies and power levels. Teams of engineers reinforced hull structures to handle the weapon's vibrations. Others modified shield generators to protect against the crystal ship's gravity waves. 5 hours before dawn, they ran the first full power test. A derelict ship, towed from a nearby battlefield, served as the target. When the frequency weapon fired, the ship's crystal components shattered instantly. "Record everything," Miller ordered. "Send the data to all ships. Everyone needs to know exactly how this works." 3 hours before dawn, the human fleet gathered. 16 ships remained, each armed with the new weapons. Every system had been checked 3 times. Every crew knew their role. "Remember," Miller addressed the fleet, "we're not here to die bravely. We're here to win carefully. Stay in formation. Watch your power levels. Keep your distance until the exact right moment." 1 hour before dawn, the fleet began its journey to the battlefield. The remaining warrior ships waited there, along with the advancing Crystal Army. Dawn would bring either victory or extinction, and humanity's careful preparation was about to be tested against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. The battlefield was a graveyard of broken ships. Hundreds of crushed vessels floated in the void, silent monuments to brave but futile charges. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching as his 16 modified ships moved into position. "Crystal ships detected," Tom announced from the sensor station. 20 of them, approaching from Sector 7. The massive geometric shapes emerged from deep space, their crystalline surfaces catching starlight. Behind Miller's fleet, the remaining warrior ships waited impatiently. "All ships, sound off," Miller ordered. "Report readiness." One by one, the human ships reported in. Each had triple-checked their weapons, shields, and backup systems. Dr. Bill Thomas stood at his modified console, monitoring the frequency weapons. "Enemy ships entering range," Tom reported. Warriors are moving to attack." Commander Grix's voice boomed over the communication channel. "For glory. For vengeance." "Wait," Miller shouted. "Stick to the plan." But the warrior ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Their energy beams splashed harmlessly off the crystal ship's surfaces. The crystal beings pulsed with deadly light, preparing their gravity weapons. "All human ships, hold position," Miller ordered. "Wait for my signal." The warrior fleet engaged the crystal ships. Despite all they had seen, despite all the losses, they still charged directly into battle. The crystal ships released their gravity waves. "Now," Miller commanded. "Frequency weapons, full power." 16 human ships fired as one. The weapons made no visible beam, no explosive sound in space. But the effect was immediate. The gravity waves faltered as the carefully calculated frequencies hit the crystal ships. "Direct hit," Bill reported. "Their gravity field is destabilizing. Keep firing." The crystal ships tried to adjust, tried to maintain their deadly gravity weapons. But the human frequencies, tested and perfected through careful preparation, disrupted their control. "They're retreating," someone shouted. "No," Miller said firmly. "They're regrouping. All ships, execute pattern Delta." The human fleet moved with precise coordination, while the warriors watched in confusion. The 16 ships split into 4 groups, each targeting different crystal ships with their frequency weapons. "Sir," Tom called out, "their outer layers are starting to crack." The crystal ship's surfaces showed spreading fractures where the frequency weapons hit them, but they weren't finished. 3 ships turned toward the human fleet, their gravity weapons powering up again. "Evasive action," Miller ordered. "Remember your training. Don't try to be heroes." The human ships scattered in practiced formations. When gravity waves lashed out, backup shields absorbed the impact. When systems overloaded, backup power cores kicked in. Every safety measure, every redundant system that had earned human ships the label cowardly now kept them alive. "Adjust frequency to match their new pattern," Bill called out. "They're trying to adapt." The battle became a dance of mathematics and physics. The crystal ships would change their gravity wave patterns, and the humans would adjust their frequencies to match. Each time the crystal beings tried a new attack, human sensors would record it, analyze it, and find its weakness. "Sir, look." Tom pointed to his screen. "The warrior ships, they're following our lead." The remaining warrior vessels had finally seen the pattern. Instead of charging in, they were hanging back, supporting the human ships with covering fire when needed. "Pattern Omega," Miller commanded. "All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship." 16 frequency weapons focused on the largest crystal ship. Its surface cracked like breaking ice, fractures spreading across its geometric form. With a silent flash, it shattered into a million glittering pieces. The other crystal ships reacted instantly, their formations breaking apart. Some tried to retreat, others attempted to attack, but the human fleet kept perfect formation, methodically targeting ship after ship. "Don't get careless now," Miller reminded his crews. "Stay focused. Stay careful." As the battle raged on, more crystal ships broke apart under the precisely tuned frequencies. The cowardly humans, with their backup systems and careful planning, had found a way to defeat an enemy that raw courage couldn't touch. But the war wasn't over yet. Even as crystal ships shattered around them, Miller knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when the rest of the crystal fleet arrived. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most courage comes not from charging in, but from taking the time to do things right. 3 days after their first victory, the combined human and warrior fleet faced the main crystal armada. 100 crystal ships filled the space before them, their surfaces gleaming with deadly purpose. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the Defender, now the command ship for the entire fleet. "All ships report ready," Tom announced from his station. Frequency weapons charged and triple-checked. Commander Grix's ship floated alongside the Defender. The warrior commander's voice came through clear on the communication channel. "We follow your lead, Captain Miller. The warrior fleets have learned the value of careful planning." Miller nodded, remembering how the warriors had spent the last 3 days learning human protocols. They had complained about the endless safety checks and backup systems, but they had learned. "Crystal ships are moving," Bill reported from his science station. "They're forming attack patterns we haven't seen before." "Steady," Miller commanded. "Remember your training. Don't rush in, no matter what you see." The Crystal Armada began its advance. Their formation was different this time, more complex, more thoughtful. They had learned, too. "Multiple gravity wave signatures," Bill warned. "They're trying to overlap their fields." The space between the fleets distorted as hundreds of gravity waves combined. Several warrior ships started to move forward instinctively. "Hold position," Miller ordered. "Let them come to us." "Tom, analyze those wave patterns." "Bill, adjust our frequencies to match." The human crews worked with practiced efficiency, their careful preparation paying off as they quickly adapted to the new threat. The warrior ships, following human guidance, maintained their positions. "Wave analysis complete," Tom called out, sending data to all ships. The Crystal Armada struck first, their combined gravity waves reaching out like invisible hands. But the fleet was ready. Modified shields, triple-checked and reinforced, held against the assault. "All ships, execute pattern Sigma," Miller commanded. "Fire on my mark." The combined fleet split into smaller groups, each taking precise positions. The crystal ships pressed their attack, expecting their opponents to break formation under pressure. Now, every ship fired their frequency weapons simultaneously. The carefully calculated wavelengths slammed into the crystal fleet. Fractures appeared on multiple ships, but the crystal beings didn't retreat. "They're adapting," Bill shouted, changing their resonance patterns. "Switch to secondary frequencies," Miller ordered, "just like we practiced." The battle became a complex dance of physics and strategy. Every time the crystal ships changed their patterns, the fleet adjusted. When systems strained under the attack, backup systems took over smoothly. The warriors, who had spent days learning these protocols, followed the humans' lead perfectly. "Sir, look," Tom pointed to his display. "Their formation, it's breaking up." The crystal fleet's perfect geometry was failing. Ship after ship shattered under the precisely tuned frequencies. Those that tried to escape found their retreat routes blocked by carefully positioned squadrons. "Don't celebrate yet," Miller warned. "Maintain formation. Keep checking your systems." The battle raged for hours. Human caution met crystal determination. But in the end, preparation and patience won out. The last crystal ship shattered into glittering fragments, leaving only silence and victory. 2 days later, Miller stood before the Galactic Council again. The chamber was different now, more subdued, more thoughtful. "The crystal threat has been eliminated," the council leader announced, "thanks to human methods." Commander Griggs stepped forward, his armor polished but still bearing battle scars. "I move that we revise our military protocols. The humans have taught us that true courage isn't about rushing into battle. It's about being thorough, being prepared, and staying alive to win the war." Seconded, came calls from around the chamber. The same voices that had once mocked human caution now spoke in its favor. The council leader turned to Miller. "Captain, your species was called cowardly for your careful ways. But those ways saved us all. What do you say to that?" Miller looked around the chamber, seeing respect where there had once been mockery. "Being careful isn't the same as being afraid," he said simply. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take your time and do things right." Indeed, the council leader nodded. Let it be recorded that humanity's greatest strength wasn't charging blindly into battle, but having the courage to be careful. The galaxy is safer for it. As Miller left the chamber, he smiled. The warriors were already talking about installing backup systems on their ships. Sometimes, it took a crisis to teach that caution wasn't cowardice, it was wisdom. The cowardly humans had changed the galaxy's understanding of courage, and the stars were safer for it.